Welcome to the Greatest Choice Podcast, challenging you to make greater choices.
Welcome, everyone, to the Greatest Choice Podcast. Our first episode, actually episode 1, take 2. Let's go. Guys, my name is Victor. I'm your host, and I'm here with my brothers Rodrigo,
Hey.
Nilto,
What's up?
and Gabriel.
Hey, yo.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. So, folks, the Greatest Choice Podcast. You guys are probably intrigued by the name, so I'll
Very
just...
much.
Yeah, I'll just bring some light to what this podcast is all about and how we came about. So about 3 months ago, I've been trying to get closer to God myself and self-improve, right? I was trying to get better at my dieting, my workout routine. I was working out, but I wasn't getting the results that I was expecting. I was working very hard at work and for my side hustle, and I wasn't achieving the results that I was expecting to achieve. And that's when I decided to make some drastic changes in my life, because I believe that in order for you to achieve drastic results, you need drastic change. And I saw how beneficial that was for me. And as soon as I made those changes, I wanted to share that with other people. And I had that feeling inside that I had a more responsibility to do that to others, right? And me being Christian, I was going to church, and I would look at the man in my church, and I didn't know how to approach them. And I would look at them, and I was like, what's going on here? Like the guys are not really actively trying to help each other. We don't really act as a community. We don't have that brotherhood. It feels like it's not approachable when it should be. That's what church is all about. And I started praying for Jesus to give me clarity of what is it that you want from me, because I had that feeling that I needed more, that I needed to do more, but I didn't know how to go about it. So fast forward a couple of weeks from there, and a sister from our church prays for me and tells me exactly what I needed to hear at that moment and give me some idea of what I needed to do, which I've been wanting to start a podcast forever, and I feel like everybody probably at one point in life wanted to start a podcast, but I didn't know what it was going to be about, and definitely I didn't think it would be about the greatest choice. And I talked to my business partner and great friend Rodrigo, and I was like, hey man, I think I know what the podcast is going to be about. I think it's going to be about helping men, bring back that influence that we need to have, tell men what their purpose really is and understanding, because that's very important. And this is the message I want to bring out. And I wanted to be around 5 core things, which is drink a gallon of water a day, work out once a day at least, read 10 pages, post a progress photo every single day, and what's the next one?
What did you cover?
I said
workout, progress picture, gallon of water, eat clean.
Eat clean.
And
Eat
read.
clean. I
Eat
forgot
clean.
about
That
eat
was
clean.
all.
Eating clean. Because I those are the things that I had done in my life personally, and it helped me become more disciplined, and it made it easier for me to start to do things that are necessary, but doesn't mean that they're fun to do. And with that in mind, my objective was I want to make sure that we focus on our physicality, our intellect, but most importantly, our spirituality. Because without that, we can accomplish the other two, right? And I talked to Rodrigo, all right, let's do this, but let's read the whole Bible first, because if we're going to be talking about this, and I was like, all right, cool, let's read the whole Bible. Then the next day I went to talk to Nilto. I don't remember. I think it was somebody's birthday. It was just a family dinner or whatever.
It was a get-together, like a cookout at the house.
Yeah. And I told him the story, told him what I wanted to accomplish, and he was like, well, you tell me, man. How did you feel?
It was surprising, to say the least. I mean, especially coming from you, not in a negative way, but the fact that it was surprising because when you were like newer in faith, and there is an expression in the Christian community, where it's like usually when you're early on in the game, you're on fire because you want to do something. So you were kind of like the catalyst to kind of get things going because, I mean, I'll speak for myself that I've always been involved in ministry with like the worship, with youth, with men. And at the time when you approached me, I was kind of taking a step back because I had just had my daughter and I was still kind of like prioritizing my family. But I had that urge that I wanted to do something for myself, obviously, and to give back to the community, to church, to God, to Jesus. So it was kind of like at a really good moment because it felt like we were going to be able to do something great, to be able to help people and to help ourselves, because it was something that we never had really we weren't accustomed on talking about like God things and progress with each other. So it was a really cool door to be opened between each other, but also now in front of a camera where we can hopefully impact other people as well.
Hey, that's hope. That's hope. That's what I want to hear.
That's the goal, man.
And so at that moment, I had recruited 2 people, right? So I was like, all right, so I got Rodrigo, I got Nilto, but Rodrigo and Nilto is my brother-in-law. Okay, he's lucky to have me in his family. And Rodrigo literally pretty much lives here in my house. We were starting 2 businesses together, so we spend a lot more time than I wanted to together, unfortunately. So, and at that moment, we had the team, we had talked about it, but no action. Right? We had the plan, but if we don't take action, it doesn't mean anything. It's just ideas, right? And everybody has ideas. So then I go to my sister-in-law's birthday, and Gabriel is there, right? And I'm super excited. I started my business. I wanted to share my business with everybody. Exodus Strategy.
Thank you.
Yes.
I thought you weren't going to say it.
And now we have Real Financial
Exodus.
Okay, so we got 2 businesses going.
Coming soon.
And Gabriel's curious because my business was about real estate, and he's a real estate agent. Let me throw it out there because he's going to say it. And he just wanted to hang out with me and talk. And Gabe and I had known ourselves. Like, I had known him for about 7 years at that point, and we never talked. Like, I never talked, And we sat down, Gabe, and how did that go, man?
It was interesting because I legit just wanted to set up just like a lunch for, I wanted to hear more about Exodus Strategy. I wanted to see, excuse me. I wanted to see like what the business was all about, right? And as the conversation is going, you end up just, mentioning all these changes in your life. Also end up mentioning the podcast. And I also want to mention that there was a specific day that you mentioned, which was the men's conference that was hosted at our church. And Pastor Daniel, which is a pastor that we all know, went. And this is actually the first men's conference that I've seen over there. And it was awesome because like the turnout was great, and also what God spoke to every single one of us was amazing, right? But there was something that you said that was great that impacted you on that day, and it was when he gave the example of when, let's say in the family, right, as we're supposed to be the head, right, we're the father, and that comes with so much more baggage, way more than just like providing in like a financial sense, right? But there's also the spiritual side of it that many times we tend to forget. And he gave an example of like, basically when the child is going through something, they usually go to the mother to pray, and they don't really think to go to the father, right? When it's like nothing wrong with going to the mother to pray. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they don't even think to go to the father in the first place. If we're supposed to provide in a spiritual sense as well, like to be that head, right? To pray over our families, to set that example, like why is that happening? And the reasoning why is he also said he's not seeing the father pray. He's not seeing the father put that into action, as Victor was saying. Like, you have to put things into action. And I think that's what we need to be different. And he was just like, dude, like, I don't want that for my life. I don't want that for my family. And for me, like you said, we've known of each other. I want to say like we were colleagues, right? Like we were going to the same church and We never really sat down and had a conversation. That was the first time after like 7 years that we were just like, hey, like, let's sit down and talk. And I feel like God, he made that happen in a very specific way. We had something in common at that point because I had gotten my real estate license. And he and him and Rodrigo started Exodus Strategy, which was related to real estate. And I was like, dude, let me connect with him. And, you know, because making connections in business is one of the best things, especially making good connections. So I was like, let me sit down with him. I just want to hear what it's about. And, you know, we can just talk. Bro, we ended up talking about business for 2 minutes. And we just started talking about life. I told him about my journey that I've had in getting my license and basically how I had procrastinated for so long. And one day I was just on the phone with my girlfriend. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to just do it. Like, sorry, I had to show the hat real quick. You know what I'm
Nike, sponsor us.
You know what I'm saying? But that's kind of why I got this hat too, because
you want to get sponsored?
Exactly.
Oh,
so,
okay. Throwing it out there.
I was just like, you know, let's do it. Like, don't allow the fear to overtake you anymore and go after this goal. And that's what I did. I had to take the test, a few times, but I got it. And the last time that I actually took the test, I remember I was studying. I couldn't remember anything. And I prayed to God. I was like, God, like, please, like, help me. You know what I'm saying? Like, help me. Like, I need to remember these terms. And that day I was studying. I wasn't remember anything. I did the test. The first time I did it, didn't remember any of the questions, checked over again. And once I saw that green pass, I was like, yes, I was so excited. And I mean, God has opened up so many doors. And, you know, that also goes with the support system that I have. Like, I work at, it's a family business, Mega Realty. And it's the support that I have for my uncle being the broker, my cousin being a realtor, my dad being a realtor.
And I think that when we started talking about the support that you were getting, that's when I was like, yeah, man, this is why I'm starting this podcast. Because I want to be able to talk, and I think Nilton says it all the time. Like, we're not here talking, you know, down to anyone.
Yeah. 100%.
Right? We are all going through this journey where we are always starting out our lives. And there's a lot of, you know, there's a couple of, we're all different ages here.
Yep.
Different periods of their lives. And it's just, I said episode 1, take 2, is because we actually recorded 3 other episodes before this one. And we just didn't like the message that we're putting out. Like, we were just not in the right state of mind for us to, you know, really impact whoever is listening right now the right way. I think we're all in different. I think we needed that practice, and we needed to kind of have some argument between ourselves and resolve some issues. And I think that's life.
Yeah.
Right? I think that if you guys really think about it, every conflict creates an opportunity.
Yep.
For you to improve.
And one thing that's important too is through this we created kind of like an accountability group.
Exactly.
Right? And we're not here, like he said, we're not here to talk down on people, but we're here to grow with people.
Yes,
absolutely.
I think that's what's important.
We want to all follow, you know, everybody on this path to become better men, essentially, right? Find our purpose, understand our purpose, and be able to follow up on that, right? When we discussed this a little while ago, and we're like, okay, we're going to do this. So now it comes to the point that we're going to do this. And Rodrigo, when I told you that we were not going to read the whole Bible, we're just going to, I remember vividly, I was like, dude, don't worry, I'm bringing Nilton and Gabe to this. They know the Bible. We don't need we're fine.
Let's push the accountability to someone else.
How did you feel about it, man?
Well, honestly, man, it was a shock to me. It was a shock to me because, like you said, 3 months ago, all these changes happened, but we actually talked about starting a podcast like 6 months ago, probably even further. What are we in December now? So we actually talked about starting the podcast before we even started the business. Like, hey, let's start a podcast and then start a business too. I was like, all right, we're probably just gonna talk a lot of smack. Like we always had that intention of helping men grow, because we both were always just looking at society and see how society is just not only against men, but against family values, right? Like they just kind of, we'll talk about that in future episodes, but it's just kind of ganging up on family values. And we're like, yo, man, we got to do something. We got to do something about that. So we're like, okay.
And this is coming from someone who's like 23 years old. Like, so I'm happy to see that you're already having this kind of feelings at such a young age.
Thank you for putting my age out there. So,
I'm 25.
So we talked about this like 6 months ago, and then 3 months later, he was like, he gets that prayer, he gets this revelation, he starts feeling this, he starts learning about the Bible. He brought Newton, he brought Gabe. I was like, what's going on, man? What's going on?
Yo, slow down.
Something's happening. You need to slow down. I need to catch up. I need to understand what's going on. And then things just start to kind of fall into place, and you really understand, like, wow, this is what it's actually supposed to be, right? Because we talked about starting a podcast. In any of our conversation, we were like, yeah, let's talk about the Bible and stuff like that, you know? Yeah. And then we brought you two in, and then like he said, like, yeah, we don't gotta read that, man. We're fine. Funny story, we actually started reading the Bible. Then I got to the point where you have to read like the 76 names. I couldn't get past that, man. That was hard.
Page.
That was hard. I was like 3 pages of just names, and names. I was like, how are we gonna do this, man? But we need to bring other people who kind of, I see that Victor and I have a lot in common when it comes to our journey, you know, right, evolving with God and evolving with Christ and learning about the Bible. And you guys have more in common on your side. Like, you guys grew up in that. We had to grow into that.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's a completely different scenario for between the four of us. And even though we have similar scenarios, it's still different.
Yeah.
Right? I honestly feel that the name The Greatest Choice, by the way, came from us trying to find out what kind of brought us together in the first place.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that was pretty cool, right? So we were trying to think about names. And
what do we have in common?
So we actually started with the pillars, right? So I was like, all right, so we want to make sure we help people improve their intellect, their physicality, right? Because your physicality is important. It gives you confidence.
Practical
right?
things.
Practical things, right? Exactly. I think that we're like, I don't want to, this is not going to be like the Sunday service, right? This is going to be different. We're going to talk about practical things that people can use in their lives. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about, let's help you. Let's talk to people, man. Motivate people to exercise more, eat better, right? Drink water, because that's going to help you physically feel better, which is also important, right? But then you also need to work on your intellect, because nowadays, if you're a conservative, I'm not even going to say Christian, if you have conservative values, if you value the family, right, you kind of it's tough. Right, Newton, you have a kid right now.
Yep.
Like, for you must think about all the time, like, raising a kid in today's society, being a Christian, believing in family values, it's tough.
Very much so.
And with all these things in mind, I was like, all right, so what choice did I really make at first to be able to get to all of this? And in my life, it was like, okay, it was accepting Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And then that's when everybody was like, hey, yo, that's the greatest choice we've ever made.
Right.
And Gabe, how does our intro go?
Welcome to the Greatest Choice podcast. Okay. That's it. I got it out.
What is it, though?
What is it?
Challenging you to make better choices.
Greater choices.
Greater choices. Yo, I messed it. I got to do it again, bro. I got to do it again.
So, essentially, we want people to have the same experience we've had, to understand that we're only able to reach a higher frequency once we accept Jesus in our lives. And I'm going to give myself a bump for that.
That is good.
That's kind of far for me, bro.
Yeah, it's
fine. We're going to have to...
I think the name could not be more fitting, because based on all these pillars that you're talking about, it's all about making great choices throughout the day, right? Yeah. So you got to make the choice of eat healthy. You got to make the choice to get yourself to the gym. You got to make the choice, all kinds of choices. But that greatest choice that you can make is what you just said, to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. So there's no better name for this podcast. It was
Right.
the best. It
We
was the
could've
greatest choice of a name that we could have chosen.
The greatest choice was the greatest choice
To,
podcast.
to
Yes.
be determined on the logo, though.
Yeah. But we also,
let's-
but yeah,
Can we not bring that?
We're not talking about that.
but we also came to the realization. I mean, I had this vision, and I was like, listen, man. Sometimes I go to church and I listen to the gospel, and I'm like, okay, so how do I really apply that into my life, right? I remember vividly, I saw this guy. He, my age, had spent 10 years in, I think it was South Africa, helping these kids. And then he comes and talks about how he doesn't feel like he's doing enough. And I was like, all right, okay, if this guy is not doing enough, I have no chance. I mean, I might as well just give up. That's how I felt. I was like, yeah, that's it. It's not for me. Heaven's not for me. And I was like, that's too hard, man. And it wasn't until I got this group of people together to help motivate me to walk this very, very narrow path that I was able to actually understand what my purpose is here. And what is our purpose, Nilto?
Our purpose is to be the representation of Jesus in everybody who we come across.
And that's
it. So I'll start off the purpose conversation, and I think for a long time, me myself, but I think a lot of people out there kind of have this notion that you got to find your purpose in your professional life, right? So, my purpose is to be a doctor. My purpose is to be a lawyer. My purpose is to be a teacher. That's not your purpose. Like, you can be whatever you want to be. You have your dream, go chase it. God, the purpose that you have, regardless of what you do, regardless of where you are, is to be a representation of Jesus, of God's kingdom, wherever you are. And that will ground you and keep you to a standard where there's no way for you to go but up. Because you keep yourself accountable, which is one of the things that we talk about a lot here, and you hear us talking about a lot about it, is that God will keep you accountable based on the things you say, the things you eat, the places you go, the things you listen to. So all these things just start to come to you when you make the greatest choice and allow God to be present in your life, and you chase the wisdom and the knowledge that he has for us. And that just helps you, like you said, when you make that choice, all these other things kind of come more naturally to you because God will kind of push you towards those things.
And we're really gonna dive into what those small habits and changes are throughout the journey here in this podcast. Because again, we want to be practical, right? If you're listening to this and you maybe you're not a Christian at all, or maybe you are a Christian, but you're not accomplishing what you hope to accomplish. You feel like you have that feeling of you're not satisfied, right? You always feel that emptiness in your heart. Sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, let me find how I can actually achieve my purpose. We just talked about our purpose, right? That's it. That's your purpose. Everything else fits into what your purpose is,
right?
Not the other way around. And how you achieve that, it's a narrow path.
That's a bomb. I'll give you a bomb for that.
It's a narrow path, and you can't, and honestly, I don't think you can walk alone. Personally, I wouldn't. If I didn't have you guys helping me walk through this, if I didn't have my wife helping me through this, I wouldn't be able to accomplish this, right? There's a lot that goes into it. So we talked about purpose, and Gabe, you mentioned a little bit about your journey on trying to get that license, right?
Yep.
You had to persevere throughout the journey, right? How do you think that perseverance that you've had and the discipline to actually get this done relates to what our purpose is on this podcast?
I mean, just right there, like we have to understand. I think even as Christians, like it doesn't mean that your life is going to be easier once you become a Christian, right? And perseverance, determination, discipline, like that's what it takes. We can't just expect just motivation to push us forward every day, but understanding like our reasoning, understanding our whys. Like, why do we do what we do, right? That should be important enough to push us forward, right? So the reason why we started this podcast, what's our why? You know, why do I wake up every day? You know, what's my reasoning? Like we said, we want to set that example, set that standard for other people. We want to be that mirror image of Jesus, right? In anything that we do. So for me, like getting this license is going to open up a lot of doors for my life. Yes. And in a sense, like being able to help others and set that example while inside of the industry as well. You know, I feel like sometimes we think that, oh, if I'm going to bring more people to come to know who God is, like I have to be out there in the streets all the time evangelizing. It's like, dude, you living your life, you setting that example is enough for somebody to question, like, yo, like, why does he do things so differently? Like, what's up in his life? Like, what's going on? Have that
Today's
curiosity.
Christian hits.
And kind of have that curiosity, right? So it's not like, dude, there are certain goals, certain plans, that God has set in your life, and in that you can fulfill your purpose of being a mirror image, you know, and anything that I do, whether that's respecting other people, respecting my clients, respecting the people that I'm working with, you know, and showing that love to everyone that's around me. Like you really never know like who you're going to encounter and who's going to need a word of encouragement. You know, something. If you just walk into the room and you are a representation of all of that, it can already just kind of change the environment that you're in.
And I think that it takes so much discipline to be able to do that consistently, because we all have our ups and downs. And today we were talking about, like, before the podcast, a little bit about how sometimes we go into this downward spiral and we stay at a low frequency and impacts everybody around us. It's the same way when you're motivated, you can actually motivate people to do better. When you're not motivated, when you're not who you meant to be, when you're not shining that light, it will affect those around you, right? Rodrigo, we talked about the 5 things, right, that we hold ourselves accountable to. We've been holding ourselves accountable to these 5 things for the past 30 days, right? I would say more about that. How many of those days did you do the 5 things? How? Let me ask you this: how easy is it?
Okay, so how many days have I done it? Probably like 2 or 3. Honestly, probably like 2 or 3. There was a little bit of a confusion because we put like read 10 days / prayer time.
Read 10 pages.
10 pages.
Yeah. Sorry, read 10 pages / prayer time. I thought it was one or the other.
Yeah. So just to recap, guys, if you're wondering, if you're confused about what I'm talking about, we decided that we were gonna hold each other accountable to 5 things, and we're gonna talk about it every single day, and we're gonna send a checklist in the group. We have a group with the 4 of us where we are gonna say, have we done this or not? Right? So have you drank a gallon of water today? Did you work out? Did you eat clean and healthy?
Progress picture.
Did you take a progress picture, and then did you read 10 pages and did you pray today? Okay.
10 pages in prayer, like we kind of
like merge, because sometimes you
it
just
together.
read
Yeah. So I thought it was one or the other. So you know, I'll be totally honest with you guys. I deserved that one. Should have gotten clarity on that, but it is not easy, man. It is probably, you know, establishing those habits. They say it takes 21 days for you to establish a habit, but you know the saying, if you're doing everything wrong, the enemy is going to leave you alone. If you start doing things right, that's when the hardship comes. That's when the temptation comes. That's when the difficulties come, because you're going to get tempted to do the wrong thing. You're going to wake up and feel lazy. You know, how long have we been trying to work out at 5 a.m? Probably, I don't know, probably like.
No, and the funniest thing is, we did it for the longest time.
We did it.
It was like
when we weren't doing this podcast.
Exactly.
We did it for
months,
6 months consistently.
4:30 in the morning, we were at the gym.
Beginning of this year. Yeah. We did it 6 months consistently, and then
we started this group.
The business.
Yeah.
No. Once we started the business, and then we decided, okay, no, what's the name of the business going to be? Exodus Strategy. Why? Because we want to honor God. I don't think ever since that day we probably made a whole entire week consistently going to the gym in the morning.
Now I have a question.
Yeah.
During those 6 months, how much sleep were you guys getting?
Oh man,
I was getting like
Right.
6 hours.
I wasn't.
Oh, that's not
bad.
too bad.
That's not too
I was
bad.
getting 4,
Yeah.
3-4 hours.
No, yeah, I would
I-
try to get 6
yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
but
I mean,
it's
most
not on the
days we were
checklist,
getting,
but-
like 5.
Yeah.
Sleep is pretty important too.
I think, and we can talk about careers here, but I don't think we want to because it's gonna take a while. But I think at the time, I realized. So I thought that if I worked as harder than anyone else and as longer, because sometimes you're not even working hard, you're just there staring at the computer, not doing anything, but you just want to. You're so guilty of doing anything.
How do I
else
work
at that
harder? I
point.
work longer.
Yeah, it's pretty much. Yeah, sometimes you're not even working. You're just there. You're telling yourself, "Oh my God, I'm working so hard. I'm here. I've been here for 7 hours staring at this computer, man. How can I not be successful?" But then there's no intention to it. There was something missing, and it wasn't until yes. Did it get harder? Did the path get harder? Was it harder for us to start, juggling everything and trying to do the 5 things? I actually lied sometimes because I was so ashamed. I was like, damn, I'm expecting these guys to go and do all these things, and I'm not reading, but I'm going to say I read. And
I lied too, man.
I lied- yeah, so-
I'll put
so-
myself out there with you.
it was horrible. So then we came together and we kind of opened up to each other. And this is the thing is so important. If you guys have friends, real friends, right? You should be able to talk about your flaws just as much as you talk about your successes, right? I think some of you sent me this, that you want to know if somebody's actually your friend. You tell them about your successes. Is that you, Gabe, that sent me this?
I think so, but that sounds familiar. I was about to say that something like that too. It's like talking about your success is just as important
Yeah.
because you're gonna see the true people around you if they're gonna be actually happy for you or not.
Yeah, because here's the thing, Nilton, what's easier for you? To tell some, because it's human nature, right? So if somebody comes to you with a problem and you know the answer for it, isn't it so easy for you to just give your advice?
Right.
But if they come to you with a success and it's something that you want to succeed on it too,
Right.
isn't it hard to not sometimes even envy that person
Oh, yeah.
for doing that?
Yeah.
Right? So it's a growth. It's such an evolution, right? That you have to put yourself through all the time to understand.
And
I think-
another thing, you want to go?
Go ahead, bro.
Thank you. I think that this podcast is going to be really good for all of us because, especially me, like you already told everybody, I'm 23. So for me, this whole journey is basically going to be a documentation of my life. And I want my life to serve as testimony to people who are watching the podcast,
Amen.
Because who's going to listen to a 23-year-old give life advice, man?
Right.
I don't expect anyone to listen to me on this podcast, and yeah, you really messed that up. But I don't expect anyone to listen to this podcast, look at me, a 23-year-old, and be like, yeah, he looks like he's been through some stuff in his life, and then actually listen to the life advice I'm giving,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I want to be able to live the advice I'm giving, and then people listen to me.
Right. So the expectation, what to expect from this podcast as we move on to this is, yeah, we're gonna try to hold each other accountable, and we hope that you hold yourself accountable to some of the things that we're gonna talk about. Because, listen, we can only explain from experience here, right? And Nilton, you're the oldest one here.
Yeah.
Like for you, some of the small changes, right? Like even just drinking water, right?
Right.
Isn't it like it's hard?
It is. Yeah. And you mentioned this, but I was going to make that same invitation is that Gabe alluded to from the beginning when he was talking about the journey to get his real estate license, the importance of a support system. So maybe you don't have family, maybe you don't have friends, but you need to attach yourself to people that will hold you accountable. Because like we talked about, the real friends are the people that will hold you accountable. They won't just let you go down a path and be like, yeah, bro, go do it. Do what makes you happy. That's the worst advice that anyone can give you. Don't go. If someone says that to you, that they're not a friend. So you got to keep each other accountable. So for me, the experience that I've had so far with the amount of time that we spent together, I mean, at this very point, we haven't posted a thing. But just between us, I can comfortably say that we evolved from the day that we decided to begin this to today. We're all better men than we were before. So it's working. We haven't even posted anything, but the fact that we are keeping each other accountable, it's working amongst us. So we know for a fact that if people take it to heart, that it will make a difference in their life. If you don't have that friend that you open up to, find that friend. If it's your family, like, talk openly about your struggles. Find someone who can actually hold you accountable, and it'll make a world of difference. And the funny thing is that when we came together, it wasn't intentional, but I think we all have different areas that we could help each other. And it's a beautiful thing because it's like we're not all, like you said, we weren't all in the same frequency because we were prioritizing different things at different times. Like we said, I'm much older. You guys are a little younger. I'm already married with a kid. We are all going through different stages, but we all have valuable things to share with each other as real friends, as a brotherhood, and it's the most important thing. So I'll speak from experience is that when we started, I've always had the wish to be like, I got to get in the gym. I got to get in the gym. I need to get healthier. And it was what you said, that it wasn't just about going out there to get a six-pack and look great. Like I needed a why to get me there. And I started thinking more about, like, I have a 2-year-old daughter. Like, I need to be not super fit, but I need to be healthy so I can play with her, so I can have, like, stamina to run around, to do basic things like that. And that gave me a why to be like, I need to be healthy. Dude, I kid you not, I've always had, like, headaches very often. And I would research and be like, why do I get so many headaches? And it wasn't until I started drinking that I saw a lot of people saying, like, 75% of the time, if you have a headache, you're probably dehydrated. I have not.
I'm gonna drop a bomb to this because I've been saying this to people, and some people in this podcast are telling me not to drink a gallon of water a day.
I mean, we could argue.
We could argue the amount.
We could argue the amount.
I agree with the gallon.
At least just.
But
don't be dehydrated.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this: like, I was definitely dehydrated, and now I'm carrying this thing around. It's not as big as that.
Yeah, you'll get
thing.
to this point one day.
Right. But this is 40 ounces, so I've made it a point. I'll drink one of these before lunch. I'll drink one of these between lunch and dinner, and then I'll drink one of these before I go to sleep. That gives me
That's
a gallon
almost
of water.
a gallon.
Almost a gallon, about 8 ounces short, but close enough. And that has made an actual, like, practically speaking, it made a difference in my life. And along with that, when we talk about, like, compounding habits, that already became an obsession. Like, no, I'm drinking water. I'm feeling good. Now I got to eat healthier.
Yeah.
So now I'm being more mindful about the portions that I'm eating, what I'm eating, at the what time am I eating. So I'm more, it's my new favorite word, being mindful. Like, whatever you're doing, be mindful about it. So,
or even like intentional. I think is a
Intentional,
good
yeah.
word,
I
too.
like the word self-aware.
but the word mindful, like I read the definition, and it's like, think about it, like your mind is fully there. So for example, if I'm spending time with my daughter, I'm being mindful about the time that I'm spending with her. I'm
Oh.
not playing and I'm on my phone. My mind is fully there. So if I'm at church, right, the World Cup is going and I have my phone with these notifications while the pastor's preaching. I muted my phone because I don't want the distraction, because I want to be mindful of what the pastor's saying. So being mindful wherever you are and whatever you're doing, it makes a world of difference, because now, like you said, you're being intentional about things. So now these changes that I'm making since we started holding each other accountable have literally and practically speaking made a difference in my life.
And I think, guys, it's honestly, when you hear each other talk, right, I think the same thing keeps coming up. So he said, I started drinking more water, and out of the blue, I was like, okay, now I need to eat clean. Now I need to work out.
Right.
Now I need to do this. Imagine when you start taking that same level of discipline and commitment to understanding the Word of God and understanding what your purpose really is and how you go about achieving, how much cleaner you will be.
Well, you should tell us about that. This recent.
Yeah.
So full disclosure,
Way to put me on the spot.
before this recording, one of the reasons why episode 1, take 2 is happening, we've had a how would we call it?
A regrouping phase?
We had a regroup
Intervention.
meeting where I wouldn't say so much an intervention because I think Intervention is when
Intervention.
everybody's kind of ganging up on one person.
Yeah.
I think it was mutual that we all needed to kind of get on the same page.
Right.
And especially when we were talking about like that spiritual side. So I'll be the host for a second. Be like, Victor, tell us about your background and how you arrived at your decision, your greatest choice,
Right.
and the journey until that life-changing conversation that we had.
So, I was not a Christian growing up, and I met his sister, right? And she was Christian. Her family, oh my God, and they couldn't. They,
I love
you
the
know,
way he
only,
talks about it.
Yeah.
too.
The only way, because at the time that's how I saw it. The only way
Sounded-
for me to see the girl, I had to go to church,
Very-
and I was like,
You sound very happy to have gone through that.
hey man, I'm happy now, but I'm not gonna lie that at the time I was happy, you know. I was like, is she worth it? But well, I'm married to her now, so she definitely is. So at first I was so opposed to it because I came from a Catholic household, and you know, we used to make fun of Christians all the time.
Same.
And I was like, now I'm gonna be the joke, you know. I don't like that. If you guys think that I'm a bully, my family's much worse. So I started going to church just to see Mariana, right? And then their parents eventually was like, yeah, you know, he's just going for going. And that was that little extra pressure for me to actually get serious about this. And one day I was just like, all right, I'll get baptized. So it wasn't, and this is, you know, I'm going to admit to it because it's the reality of what happened to me. I did not get baptized because I was like, oh my God, I had this amazing experience with Jesus Christ, and right now I'm going to accept the Lord and I'm going to change my life. No, I got baptized and I kept doing the same thing I was doing before. So just getting yourself deep into a water, it's not going to change you. It's got to come from the heart. It's got to be meaningful. I think Jesus, obviously, he can see through you,
Right.
and he will. I think for me at that point, I got baptized and nothing changed. So subconsciously, I was like, yeah, okay, it's not that bad to be a Christian, man. I can continue to do the same things, you know, like just keep going.
Willfully ignorant.
No, I was actually ignorant at the time. I wasn't even with. I never touched the Bible. First of all, I hated reading, right? So I was like, you know, if I'm going to read, in my mind, I was like, if I'm going to read, I'm going to read business books and things like that because I want to make money. So, you know, this probably was like 6 years ago. Got baptized, went to church for years, and then I started experiencing things. I had many experiences with God where I went through a lot of struggles, and the only being, you know, I think I'm not gonna say person, the only being that was there to kind of like prevent me from going through some bad stuff, it was, you know, I knew it was supernatural because I got kicked out of my mom's house, and then I find this perfect place right next, you know, close to Mariana's house at the time, close to my job. You know, it's a secure space, it's clean, it's nice, and cheap because I was broke. And I was like, all right, so there is a God. And I knew that I started feeling like, okay, there is a God, it exists, but I didn't really want to find out more about it, okay? And it wasn't until after I got married that I understood that I feel like after I went to that group of men's, right?
Men's conference.
Men's conference, right?
Mhm.
That I kind of felt like, okay, hold on, I need to change my life real quick. Because I was going through some troubles in my personal life where I did not understand why they were happening. No matter what I did, I was able to get out of that hole. And I went to that, you know, Gabe mentioned, he talks about, you know, our purpose as men is not just to provide. And I was always driven by money. I wanted to make as much money as possible. I wanted to be the best. And I worked in an environment where I was the best at what I did. And I delivered. And I was making a ton of money for my age. And to me, I was on the top of the world, got married. And then I was like, okay, being married is hard. What happened? It was a honeymoon when I was dating. What happened after I got married? What happened was I just never prayed. And I did not bring Jesus into my marriage. And now I'm impacting another person. Because my wife now is feeling the same things and we don't know how to work it out. And we never had problems before. And all right, so Now I have to seek. Don't believe in, going to psychologists or all this crap. I don't believe it. It might work. I don't believe it. Because to me, now especially, if I need to seek help, I'm going to seek help from there. Right? But at the time, I wasn't in that state of mind. But after I heard Pastor Daniel, I realized, okay, I need to start praying. I need to talk to God. Let me see how that feels. Now, how do you pray? I didn't know how to pray. I was like, okay, so I asked my father-in-law, because somebody I look up to, and I was like, hey, man, I need to ask you this. And it's super embarrassing, by the way. Like, I don't know how to pray. And he taught to me, and I was like, that's it? It's just having a conversation, really? It's just, that's how it goes? So I started trying that. And listen, it was the best thing I've done. It just like everything that I was experiencing as far as going to the gym, eating some disgusting ground beef every single day, I was like, I'm putting myself through a lot of uncomfortable things to get to where I want to be physically, to where I'll be more confident. So, I will be able to present myself better. So now is the time for me to do the same thing spiritually, because at first you will feel silly. Hey, I'm here in this dark room and I'm just talking to the wall. That's how I felt. But then you start seeing change in your life, and then you want more. And that's when I started feeling the urge to start this. So fast forward to the first episode. So we designed this nice studio here. The picture is different. We just got this one for today. It's pretty cool. But and we recorded 1, 2, 3 episodes, and it wasn't flowing as well as it should. Like, I think everybody, like I said, it was at a different frequency where I was not treating this as a Christian podcast. For some reason, I was embarrassed of it. I was like, nah, we can't throw that message out there, because I don't want people that are not Christian to not listen to us. And we had a huge argument amongst the four of us in the third episode, and I think that was the best thing that has ever happened. That conflict made me understand that the reason why it's not working the way it needs to work, it's because even though we're talking about how great our life has changed once we accepted Jesus as our Lord and Savior and took action on it, I was still not preparing for it. I wasn't praying before it. I wasn't praying during, because it's a preparation. There has to be preparation in between, right? I think that's Nito mentioned that day. We need to prepare, get your mind aligned to the strategy of this. So I see it as everything like in business. You need to plan, you need to strategize. With the Bible, you need to read it, understand it, and study to understand the message. And that's what I started doing. And I work in an environment where I'm an influence for people, and people come to me as a resource. And I've always been able to quote books and quote people that are, I consider to be in better positions than me, right? That's how you learn. You don't learn. If you're intelligent, you learn from other people's mistakes. So every time somebody came to me, I was always able to give good advice, but not the greatest advice. And and when I started reading the Bible, and guys, listen, and this is very recently, by the way, but reading with intention, not just reading the Bible, because I've been trying to read the Bible for pretty much the entire year, but actually reading with intention, reading the Gospels, and letting Jesus talk to me directly through the book. Just by reading a few chapters, I was already able to help other people with the gospel. And when I taught to these people, they were like, oh my God, man, this is exactly what I needed to hear. This is exactly what this is so impactful. And that to me, I was like, wow, I wasted 25 years of my life reading meaningless books. Because honestly, when you put any other book close to this, they're all meaningless. When all the answers are right there. And the beautiful part of it, we talk about something, you mentioned something from the Bible. I can use that to bless another life. I can say something here that you can hear, and somebody will come to you and you can share that. So the importance of having a group of people that are aligned to the same beliefs as you, being able to have these conversations. I've known you since I got to the United States pretty much. Never we talked about the Bible. We
Right.
never. We were uncomfortable. We talk about this.
Yeah.
And now that we're talking about it more, we're learning so much. So that's my 2 cents on this. I think that has been my journey so far. And a lot of people out there, I think, will resonate to the message about, yeah, I've been baptized. Or I was a Christian, I was a kid. In our case, like I was a kid, it was there. My parents forced me to. I had to get baptized. Rodrigo probably did it because of his girlfriend too, right, at the time.
And that's the beauty of it, because I was.
Yeah,
I would like
that's
to get-
exactly what happened.
I would like to give Rodrigo's 2 cents as well, but obviously the people that are listening will come from different backgrounds, and there's also that variety here as well, because me and Gabe here, we both grew up in church with Christian families. Me, not from birth. My parents became Christian a little later, like I was about 11 years old, so pretty early on. Gabe, you pretty much
I was born.
into a Christian household, so little different in regards to you guys, because we were there, exposed to it, but we also had to get to a point where we made that choice ourselves. Yeah. Whereas you guys kind of grew up like secular and then made the decision to come into the church. What about you, Rodrigo?
Hey, man, I mean, you know,
Amen.
Victor, if I'm going to go through the whole thing, it's going to sound kind of repetitive because Victor told his in detail, but it was...
Well, talk to us about, like, from when we started the podcast to now. Like,
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, from when we started the podcast, man, I'm not going to lie. It was... The four of us got together before I went to Brazil, right? Because until we actually filmed it, we got together, and then I went to Brazil for 2 weeks for my brother's wedding, and then we filmed the first episode right after, right? So I'm not gonna lie, I was also kind of embarrassed to call this a Christian podcast because I had just gone to Brazil and I grew up with a Catholic family, and the jokes never end, man. Like, they are always, and they got some good jokes too. Like, it made me laugh. You know, my brothers, my cousins, my parents are always super respectful of my decision, right? And because they know, like, my parents are Catholics, but they're not the type of Catholics who are making jokes about their sons, you know?
Right.
But my brothers and my cousins, man, they're just, you know, they just kept making... They in Portuguese they say something crente do cu quente, and I'm just like, sorry, Nilton. but it's
I don't even know what to press.
but
let
it's
it be.
something, and it makes you think, man. And then I came back. I'm like, okay, you know what? I already got roasted so much for being a Christian in Brazil. And I told my brothers that I wanted to start a podcast and do this and do that. And then when they asked me, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's to help men. But I didn't really talk about, you know,
Yeah.
that we're going to talk about the Bible here. And then last week, we had that whole conversation. We regrouped, and then I was like, no, there is no in between. You cannot live this life. You cannot go down this path on top of a fence.
Yeah.
You know, like we talked about, you know, there are many areas of my life where I'm willfully ignorant, where I'm still learning about, where I do have to read a word about it, where I have to come to my own conclusions and make my own decisions. But it's a narrow path, and we have to be willing and we have to want to go down that path because it's very clear.
It's there.
It's very clear. It's there. It's there for
There.
all of us to read. You just got to pick it up and read it, man. And we can't do something like this and just not be very clear on what our values and what our intentions are.
Absolutely. And it will impact for you if you're listening and it's sort of hard for you to grasp what we're talking about, just put it this way, okay? Every single one of us here had drastic change in our lives since we started this and started to get closer to God and started to talk about God in a group. And I'll tell you, I've quit my job this week, okay? 5 years I was there. For 5 years I was there. putting a cap on my potential. And now I'm already starting my second business. And life insurance, you guys need it, hit me up. And but that drastic change, for years I've been complaining about the job. For years I've been complaining about how unfulfilled I was feeling. But all I did was complain. And I wasn't taking any action on it. And it wasn't until I started reading the Bible, started getting together with these guys and talking about this publicly, that these people were able to give me holy advice. I think holy advice is the best way to put it, because it's coming from the Bible. It's not, Gabe didn't come to me and said, oh, I think you should do this. No, he opened up the Bible and read something to me.
When we talked about whether or not you should put your 2 weeks in.
Yeah. So there was a lot of doubt in my mind. There was a lot of fear. And if you are feeling the same way, remember, there's a God out there, and you should not fear. You should trust and you should have faith.
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay?
That is a bomb.
All right.
Amen. Where is that?
Amen.
There you go. Yeah.
Listen, guys, thank you very much for tuning in with us. I hope to see you guys again next week when we post our next video.
Yes, sir.
Again, take this. Be accountable. Find people that want to help you. Hit us up. Okay? Hit us up. We'll help you. Okay? That's what we're here for. We want to make sure we can impact each other's lives. And we are here as a community, as a brotherhood. And we would love to have you being part of it. Thank you very much, guys. The greatest choice. Take care.